Hi, I'm Penguify, and I'm obsessed with replying to YouTube comments. I have spent a ridiculous amount of time going through each and every comment, trying to respond to as many people as possible. Honestly, thank you so much for all the support. This has been a wild ride. I was actually planning on taking a hiatus from content creation until the YouTube algorithm put me on its back and carried me here. Some of you guys have been so kind to me, others have been informative, trying to help out others, and some of you guys have a really hilarious and original sense of humor. Okay, but seriously, let's talk about improvement. When I did this project, I played for 2 to 3 hours per session, and mostly those 8 scenarios. However, if I were to do it again, I'd change 2 things. First, shorter, more focused sessions. Since I was streaming this whole process, I played a lot of scenarios that I could do in the background. I wanted to be able to play reasonably well while also talking about something else. So, I played a disproportionate amount of one-wall TE and Kata long strafes. I'd improve a lot more efficiently if I divided my time based on skills that needed the most work. So, more time with close range tracking, less time with easy click timing for me. I also would include more types of aim in my regimen, namely aiming with movement, aiming while dodging, and vertical aim. Pause this video and read this comment by Tasnar talking about his experience with Kovaaks. And maybe look into Aimer7's insanely detailed write-ups and course selections that he's put out across the internet. This is probably the second most common question I got in my Kovaaks video. And I'll preface this by saying that this is all coming from personal experience. I don't think this is as important of an issue as people might expect. A pretty common thing people get recommended is to pick one sensitivity and use it forever. Therefore, a lot of people stress out about which sense is the best for them, but I'm here to tell you that you can retrain your muscle memory in a shorter time than you might expect. When you first make a big switch, you'll definitely lose your ability to do flicks consistently, but within a day or a week and enough in-game time, you can definitely learn to pick up a new sensitivity and match or even surpass your old skill level. That's because aim is much more about reading and technique than it is about knowing exactly how far you have to move your mouse to get from point A to point B. With that being said, questions like, should I use my hipfire or ADS sense to train, or small change in sensitivity will absolutely ruin your aim, aren't really that relevant. I personally use the same sense with a 1x as I do with hipfire, but that's mostly because my sense is already so low. People like Asu use a 1.0 ADS multiplier, meaning that their sensitivity gets slowed down every time they aim down the sights. But you still see him styling on people if he's ADS or he's hipfiring. That being said, I do enjoy using the same sensitivity across multiple games. I usually consult mousesensitivity.com before I pick up a new game, whether it be Vermintide, Warframe, Diabolical, whatever. I'll link it in the description. I've gotten this question upwards of 100 times now. First of all, it's actually really cool to see both communities care about improvement so much, but after the first 20 times of copy-pasting the same reply, I just couldn't do it anymore. Now, I'll give a proper answer. The answer is yes, but also kind of no. No in the sense that there's no direct Kovaaks equivalent on console, and at first when people ask me, I would tell them this. It has to be about mindset more than anything. What will separate you from the people who are just playing to win all the time is that you will put yourself in situations you can learn from. Take those fights you're not sure you can win, just so you can improve your aim a little bit more. A lot of players are going to prefer to play positioning and timing to sneak out surprise victories in Apex, but you really don't get better mechanically if you don't put yourself out of your comfort zone. Of course, just playing more in general will help you, but when it comes to getting comfortable with gunplay and movement, you just have to force yourself to do it. Winning is fun, and in Apex, you'll have a much better placements when you play passive and only take third-party situations, but you'll find you get much better at the game and in 1v1s if you take fights more often. There's also some discussion about whether to look at your crosshair or your opponent when it comes to aiming. And I'll quote Aimer7 here, who has a lot of write-ups on aim theory. He says, aiming by focusing directly at the target, the bot in our case, increases your reading skills and therefore improves reactivity. Aiming by focusing at the crosshair makes you smoother, more precise, and more aware of your crosshair position with respect to the target. When it comes to tracking, there's 2 main difficulties that come with it. First, the ability to read and react to the direction your opponent is moving, and when they change direction. Second, to be able to place your aim directly on the opponent, matching the speed in which they move. This is where you can really leverage your aim assist. And while the mechanics behind aim assist vary from game to game, for the most part, it slows down your crosshair if it's on top of an enemy. Keep in mind, this is coming from someone who hasn't aimed with a controller, aside from Monster Hunter, in years, but I'd wager that you'd be better off looking at your opponents rather than your crosshair. Aim assist simplifies the problem of needing to match the speed your targets are moving at due to the aim slowdown. This means that the two-part tracking problem becomes much more weighted towards the reading and reacting difficulty. But that's just my 2 cents. A surefire way to improve your gunplay is to have a training partner to 1v1 with. When I first got into FPSs, I was introduced to a mode called MGE in TF2. The friend who got me into the game already had 300 to 400 hours, and I was trash. I had just transitioned from console FPS, and I had a very hard time aiming accurately with a mouse. In our early MGE sessions, I was getting dumpstered, scoring less than half of what he was. I'd watch him go against other players and think, I can do that, and then not be able to execute. I got frustrated with not being good enough, and that led us to playing more and more of that 1v1 game mode. I was never that good at TF2, but my general deathmatching improved at an exponential rate due to playing with someone who was better than me. Eventually, I caught up, but we still were able to grow off of each other as players in this mode. Most FPS games offer some form of 1v1 mode, and in Apex, you can kind of do it by enabling friendly fire in the firing range. It's better than nothing, and if you do happen to use this method, I'd recommend dropping some lifeline packages around the center of the top area to act as cover to play around. All that being said, I did mention that this is what I used to tell people. When I posted this in wall of text form on Reddit, someone replied with this post. It's a guy who set up Kovaaks for a controller, finding a lot of success and improving his mechanics with it. So yeah, you can play Kovaaks, there's just no aim assist. If this is what you're looking for, check the link down below. Okay, this might be my least favorite comment on the whole video. He just completely misses the point. Here, take this analogy. Imagine there are 2 violinists, and before you say it, I know I'm a stereotype for playing violin, okay? Both of them start with the same level of skill, however, one of them chooses to improve by picking up new pieces and learning them front to back. The other one chooses to spend an hour a day practicing scales, exercise, and other things to build technique. Which one is the better player by the end of the month? It's not that obvious, and it depends on a lot of other factors, but I'd say that most people that have picked up an instrument understand the value of doing those scales and exercises to build your technique. Yet, the equivalent of doing that in a shooter is to use an aim trainer, but I'm still met with a lot of people who say, just play the game. It's about what kind of practice you do and how that affects your improvement rate. This is not much to do with the content of the video, but I do want to mention for everyone who's made this exact comment that no, I'm not sponsored. I haven't made a dime off of that video because the Rocky theme got copyrighted, and when I first made it, I had no following whatsoever. It just wouldn't make sense to sponsor someone who hasn't made any good content yet. But even though I've made no profit, I look at that viewer count and say, holy, that is ridiculous. At least 4 to 5 times a day. I got really lucky. Basically, what about the game-specific mechanics? So this includes recoil, movement or strafe aiming, bullet travel time, bullet drop, stuff like that. And yeah, without a doubt, these are all skills that require a lot of practice on their own time. However, that doesn't discount the benefit that aim training has. Aim training's primary benefit is to give you better control of the muscles that pilot aim. In other words, putting the crosshair exactly where you want it to be. As for recoil, I'll admit that Kovaaks is not a good place to learn how to control recoil and how to track while doing it. There are a few scenarios that feature guns with recoil, teaching you to remember to compensate for it while firing, but Kovaaks does not have any way to identically replicate the recoil pattern from a game. I've heard other trainers have been making strides to have robust recoil creation, but for now, that's something you'll have to learn in the firing range for Apex or in real games. I'm actually shocked that there are so few people calling me out for not being that good at any of my skills. I'm not just being humble either. My pen spinning is okay because I have decent flow from doing it idly for so many years, but I don't know that many hard tricks. I did care a lot about OS in my time playing it, going as far as to write mini essays about improvement and noteworthy players, but I don't think I'd even be in the top 10k anymore. I'm pretty decent at typing, Although, there are people who can consistently get from 180 to 200 sustained words per minute, and I can't even come close to that. And speed cubing is especially bad. I enjoy spamming certain sequences of moves to relocate specific pieces, but I haven't actually sat down and tried to get faster solves in years. Jack of all trades, master of none. It's way cooler to me to see someone like a Koro who's absurdly good at Taiko, one of the best in the world at Tetris, and has some of the most unique plays of all time in standard Os. But anyway, this is all to say that if you want to get into some of these hobbies, it's really not that hard to get started. Try learning the basic thumb around. Look up beginner method. Give Os a try, and fight me in Type Racer. First off, after just talking about how I'm not that amazing at any of these skills, I want to say in reference to the intro montage, it doesn't take as long as you'd expect to get to the level of being able to do something impressive. With something like pen spinning, just get started and then do it idly while watching a movie or something. But in general, continuing to improve at a specific skill can happen in one of two ways: motivation or dedication. Of course, there's some intersection, but the main difference is that motivation comes from the intense desire to accomplish something. That's why I'd recommend, if you want to improve at something, set goals. And when you're close to reaching that goal, your motivation cranks up much higher. And when you reach that, set more goals. In the setting of Kovaaks, you could try getting higher averages on that one scenario that's giving you trouble. In something like pen spinning, you could try a challenging new trick that forces you to practice or maybe even learn some more fundamentals to reach that goal. If you're a huge data nerd like me, you may also enjoy keeping records of your progress, be it a spreadsheet or a video, so you can look back and say, damn, I've gotten pretty good. As for dedication, this is much more applicable to something like weightlifting or other things that you might not be as excited to keep going with. It involves making it a habit and a routine. But if you really want to stick to something, force yourself to do it at a specific time and hold yourself to doing it. Ideally, you want it to feel worse when you don't do it compared to when you do, like you're breaking a rule. I didn't really take this approach for fun skills like Os and cubing, but I did make use of it for exercise and practicing a violin. This is actually a pretty complex issue. I'm mostly talking about games that have an effectively infinite skill ceiling and are hyper competitive, because those are kind of my kryptonite. In the sense that I'll try the game under the guise of playing it for fun, get destroyed by people who have put a ton of time into that game, and then I'll start the 10-year training arc to improve as much as possible and beat everyone who bested me. That's how I am. I think I'd like those games too much. I'm worried I'll play it, get sucked in, and then lose all my free time, and in the case of Melee, also lose all the remaining cartilage in my wrists. There have been a lot of good recommendations, but I'm not really sure where I want to go with this channel. Keep hitting me with some more recommendations regardless. I'd love to hear what you guys think I should try. The kind people at the Meta, the devs of Kovaaks, have given me 25 Kovaaks keys to give out. So if you want to give aim training a shot, I'm going to give out 5 keys here on YouTube. If you want to enter, leave me a comment telling me why you want to get into aim training, and leave a like on this video. I'll also be giving out another 15 keys on Twitch this Friday at 4 PM EST. 10 of which will go to anyone who stops by my stream, 5 will be given out to my subscribers on Twitch, and the last 5 will go to winners of an elimination style word game that I put a little bit too much time into. I'll leave a link to my Twitch in the description if you want to stop by. And thanks for watching.